But you go up the river, R37, turn into Indian Creek, and we're there on the point with the motel. That's how you get to it by water. And by land, you go down the red light at CVS, Kroger's area there. You turn down by CVS, and it says you road dead ends in 2.1 miles. You go down to the end of the road. If you turn to the right, the motel is there. If you turn to the left, the marina's there. If you stay straight, you're going to get wet. All right, so it's just a dead end point down there. But made the move there 2 years ago. It's been great. I appreciate everybody following me from the old captain's quarters up to Indian Point, and still growing, expanding, and we're the biggest on-water tackle shop. We have a little cabin that we rent out, a little short-term cabin, 24-hour gas, no wake zone there around the marina, so it's a lot calmer than my old place. But it's been great, and I appreciate everybody's support we're getting ready to wrap up our 27th year, so can't do that without y'all, of course, so I appreciate everyone, okay? We're just going to talk about things, tips, and tricks along the way that I've learned. I'm 52 and striper fished my whole life, ever since I was striper fishing before I was actually even bass fishing, so we've done a lot. Traveled up and down the East Coast, a lot of different places fishing for stripers, and doing it on Smith Mountain Lake for fun is one thing, but the way you really learn is go out and go to these other areas, go to these other lakes. When you want to fish on Smith Mountain, if the weather's bad or whatever, you may not go. So there's things to learn on bad weather situations, wind direction, moon phases, sunny, cloudy, a lot of variables there. So when you're in a tournament situation, you're going to fish. I mean, you've done paid an entry fee, as long as there's no emergency or life-threatening conditions, the tournaments goes on. So it really pushes you to go and learn new lakes, new patterns, pulling umbrella rigs. And back in early 2000s, I never pulled umbrella rigs, but when you go and fish a different lake, maybe that's their forte, maybe that's what they go to. Some of them like to bottom fish. When you go to these other places, you learn different styles and techniques that really help you here at home, and that's sort of what's made me the fisherman that I am today, is the competitive edge of the tournament trail, that you have to fish on those bad days. You have to fish during a full moon. And I always encourage people to write down what you do on up there at printing paper. They have a neat little daily calendar, a planner, I guess you will. When you open it up, there's a block there for each day. One of the best things you can do is every day you go out, write down whether it's good or bad. You write down how many you caught, write down what channel marker you was near, wind direction, barometric pressure. Write as much information down on that block when you go, and that will help you a year from now. I've got these books, there are a stack of them dating all the way back to 1988. That's how, and you'll find that how consistent these fish go back. I know where they're going to be before they even get there, because you can go back and look and see how consistent it is. As long as you've got the same, within reason water temperature, those fish are very consistent to where they go back to. And even on a bad day, you write down 0 if that's what you caught. Well, guess what? Next year, don't go there. Go somewhere else. So write down the good and the bad. Write down as much information on those things as you can, and just keep them in a safe place. I've got mine in a safe, so that's sort of my Bible, if you will. And so I know where I'm going to fish in December. I know where I'm going to fish in March. So they're very consistent. But also the people comes in the shop all the time. I'm here to try to take and let you know that my experience is there for you. When you come to the marina, if you have a question, I'm going to tell you yes or no, or tell you my opinions on what, like rod selection. That's a big thing. A lot of guys come to the Smith Mountain Lake and they're going to go for stripers. They think they got to have these big reels and stiff rods, and they come in and said, I bought these reels and I want to get them spooled up for stripers. And I said, if you just come talk to me, and you know, there's a cost associated with that big reel. There's a cost associated with filling that big reel up with line. When I tell you the line cost is $30 just for the line, then you could have downsized there. So let my experience work for you. I've done stupid. I've spent money on things that it don't work, and so that's what I'm there for. I can give you a fishing report on the lake. I can help you with tackle selection, bait catching. You know, I store my own bait. When I travel, I was even taking bait with me, so I know how to cure and to catch, get bait ready for travel, get it ready for your boat. So I can help you with a lot of different phases, but you just need to come and talk to me, and I'll share that information for you. I'll get into some of my demos, and everything that I do is not perfect. It may not work for you, but it's worked for me. I'll start off with that, and I'm not going to bore you with because I'm sure other speakers have talked about planer board fishing, umbrella rig fishing, all the different stuff, the jigging. What I'm going to sort of try to concentrate on is the little tips or the tricks or cost savings, if you will, about each aspect of fishing. Planer board fishing is one of my favorite ways to do it, and I've got a rod and reel here that is very versatile. It's got a soft tip on it, so that when you hit the waves, like when we was fishing the ocean, very rough out there in the ocean, you need something that was soft so that when you hit these waves and fishing Smith Mountain Lake, the 4th of July weekend's probably the same comparison. So when you get out there in that rough water, you want a tip that will bend so that it don't prematurely jerk your board loose and your slide down your line. So this is important, but also what's important is how stiff this rod stays down in here, because when that fish takes off and it's on an outside planer board, you need some backbone because you got stretch and give in mono. Mono line stretches. This is 20 pound, about like everybody else. Now I've got these ready. We're getting ready to start traveling, but this is a little bit bigger line. I think this is 30. But here on the lake, I fish 20 pound main line and like a 17 pound fluorocarbon leader. I'm sure you've heard that over and over, so we're not getting into that too much. But when the fish hits that outside planer board, your farthest one out, you have a lot of stretch and give in your mono and then in your tip. So I want a lot of backbone here to where I can really penetrate that hook. You want something, you don't want that rod bending all the way down to here. You want it just to bend up here at the tip. And all this that stays straight, you see how much of that rod is staying straight? That's your power. That's your backbone in a rod. That's important when you're getting ready to set the hook. If you're jigging, to be able to get them out from the trees, that's very important to have a lot of backbone in a rod. But I'm going to hand out, here's another thing that a lot of people appreciate when they come in the shop and they're asking about pulling planer boards for the first time. I didn't know we was going to have this many people. I don't know how many copies I've got here, but this is a diagram of how I personally run my, this is the boat, and of course, and you see how we run the planer boards off to the side. And when you come in for the first time, and I know that you're new at it and you're buying boards for the first time, I'll sort of do this on a little scrap piece of paper for you, and a lot of people take it and appreciate that. So I'm going to pass this around. If you want to take a picture with your phone, if you want it digital on your phone, you can do that. If you want a copy, you're welcome to it. If I run out, just get with me at Indian Point and I'll make more copies, but I'll just pass that around. If you want a copy, keep it. But that just talks about the multiple rods that we use. Most people here run 2 or 3 on each side. If you get out and, into the ocean, we've run as many as 10 boards, 5 left, 5 right, and then your planer boards. But you're out there in the ocean, you got more room, and people don't run you over as bad out there as they do here. So you may find it come the 4th of July, you may have to shrink those numbers just a little bit, make them a little closer to your boat. And but that's if you're out by yourself. We've got 90 foot all the way out to 140, 150 foot. So, but you can take a look at how we run the planer boards there. And talking about the rod, I've really narrowed it down. I use this same rod. A lot of people used to have their planer bore rods, their bottom fishing rods, jigging rods. So this rod right here is I really love it. They don't make it anymore. That's the sad part about it. But it's a rod that I even take to the ocean. And there was a pretty expensive rod, but Accurate is the name of the rod. It's a medium light, but it's an ocean medium light. So a medium light here, what we'd be used to is really flexible and limber. This has got a lot of backbone because it's an ocean, sort of a big water rod, and it has that backbone. So and what I'm getting at is this one rod does a lot for me. So I don't have to carry my down rods, my planer board rods, my bottom fishing rods. This rod does everything. And with the help with these sinkers, Easy Sinker has come out. This is a fairly new product that has a slit in the lead, and it has a plastic insert where you can go from no weight to, if you during the middle part of the day when the fish go down a little bit, put you a little small. It goes down to a 1/4 ounce. You can slide this on here and make a lightweight rod and a planer board if that's what you want. But it's easy on and easy off. You don't have to cut your line to do so. Just put it in there and twist that little plastic insert, and you can twist it off and go deeper. You know, when they get to a down rod or you want a bottom fish, you can take this weight off and do different sizes. So all these props here that I show you here is going to be door prizes. So that's what I was getting to on Facebook, was going to be a lot of door prizes. So if you want to take and try these, I carry them. I stock them there at Indian Point. But take and try this and tell me if it don't limit the rods that you have to carry. You could take one rod and do a lot of different fishing with it now. The next thing about live bait is, and I just posted this on Facebook, if you're new on Facebook, or you send me a follow or a like and a friend request, and you'll see a lot of my content on Facebook, and I go over some of this stuff. This is beads, rubber beads that goes on my hooks. I'll sit there during the shop when I'm not too busy, and I'll go ahead and put a whole pack of these on a whole pack of the hooks, and you put it down toward the bend of the hook, so that the bait, when you hook the bait, it don't slide up the shank of the hook and then turn around and double hook itself. So this is another neat little feature, a little gadget that a lot of people don't know about. I was actually doing this before this even come out back in the 90s, when the fish would go down there in Cedar Keys. Some of y'all remember that. We were down rodding, and you get a bite, and they would just hit at your bait sometimes, and you'd bring it in, and when you bring in your bait, it was helicoptering, coming up, twist your line all up, and it was bad. But I would take a green sassy shad before this even came out and chopped it up take my pocket knife and just chop a little piece, like a chunk. And I was putting it on here before this was coming out. I didn't even, when I seen this, I said, wow, it's manufactured now. But there's a little hole in here. This is a number 3. This works good up to about a 3/0. If you go any bigger than that, it'll go on a 4/0, but it really stretches it, and sometimes it'll break or bust. This is just a rubber core bead that slides on, and of course the bigger hooks has thicker diameter metal, and it stretches it too far, and it'll break. But this works good on my 2 and 3/0 hooks. Anything bigger than that, like my 4/0s and my 6/0s, something I would use on a gizzard shad, the gizzard shad don't get turned quite as bad. I hook them a little different. I go in the mouth and come out the nose, the nostril, when I hook a gizzard shad. So this is not really needed as much on a 4/0 or a 6/0. So the number 3 bead goes on my number 2/0 octopus hook that I keep. And I go ahead and make these up so I'm not out there fumbling around in the boat moving. These are very small and hard to work with sometimes, so just do it at your house, do it in your spare time, so that when you need a hook, this rubber bead is already on your hook, and you just tie your hook on and go. Again, if you lose it, if you break off or something, it's ready to go. So, and get you a little box to keep all this stuff in. All these easy sinkers, all the different sizes go from a quarter all the way up to a 3 ounce. So there are a lot of variables there on the size of weight that you would need or use. So get you a box, keep your hooks, keep your beads in there so that you're organized, so that when you need something, you know where it's at, and it keeps you from looking in this compartment, that compartment. Put all your terminal tackle together, and anytime you need a swivel, a hook, it's right here in one box. So keep that handy, because as you know, you go through a lot of hooks on Smith Mountain Lake, a lot of trees, a lot of standing timber out there, so have your hooks ready to go. And a organized box will save you a lot of time. It'll cut you wasted time when you're out there looking for things. So this is a neat little deal here. Moving on to like jigging. This is all that's going to be door prizes, so you hang around for that. Here's the heads and the flukes. This is going to be another door prize for you. But I'm real favorable to white pearl. White ice works good. I've caught them on silver rainbow, albino. There are a lot of different colors out there. They probably make 50 different colors of flukes. I mean, it's unreal. But the white pearl works better for me. And I like a 3/8. I didn't bring my personal. It's on my bass boat. I didn't have it at the shop. My bass boat's at the house, so I didn't have it. But this is one that I sell at the shop, and I rig it up for people going for the first time. They have a lot of questions. So I have all these rods. I have down rods. I have trolling rods. I have jigging rods. I have all this made up there at Indian Point, so that you can see even the line, the 15-pound Seaguard line that I use. I've even got some of that over there to do as a door prize as well. But the 3/8 head is very important right now for 2 reasons. When they're breaking, and you have a lot of that going on, the 3/8 don't sink too fast. Like when they're busting, you can throw it out there, and as soon as it hits the water, start reeling it or twitching it, and you'll catch fish while they're breaking. But the 3/8, what really helps me is I continue on. Me and Ken was talking there before the meeting. When you see these fish breaking and you're running to them, you know they're across the lake, you can set them watch those fish sort of move in a certain direction, whether it's left or right or going back in a pocket. Keep that in mind, so that when you run into these fish, that even when they go down, they're probably still migrating that direction for a little while. So that helps me catch an extra fish or two when they go down. I have the fluke and the lead head on, so that when they go down, and they've been going down to about 15 feet, 18 feet maybe, when they go down. So what this allows me to do is, yes, I can reel it fast when they're breaking, but when they go down, I can also watch it on my live scope. When I get down in that 15, 18 foot range, I can start twitching it and working it back to me, and I can see them. You know, I know what direction to cast. I seen what direction they were headed in. So you just continue that migration or that direction until you don't see any more fish, because they were headed in that direction. And this weighted fluke catches me a couple more fish after the fish go down. My wife is real big on throwing the whopper plopper, as you know. And after they go down, she does great. She may catch 2 or 3 while they're breaking, but when they go down, she's not ready and prepared. So I like this style. I like this more than I do the topwater baits. As you know, you get into those whopper ploppers and Zara spooks, the great baits. I've got those here for giveaways tonight too. But treble hooks, you know how dangerous that is. I hate them, and I don't keep a lot of fish, so I'm going to throw them back anyway. So if you do lose a fish on a single point hook, a fluke, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's no big deal. So it's just worth the time saving to be able to unhook that fish, be a whole lot easier on it. These treble hooks, they get down in the gills, they rip them up, they cut their eyeballs out sometimes. So I like the fluke ideal if I can get by with it. Now, if I throw this fluke 2 or 3 times and they don't bite it and she's catching them on a whopper plopper, I will throw a whopper plopper. I mean, I'm not dumb, but if I can catch one on a fluke, I like my chances with my fingers and all. These hooks are dangerous. I'm sure some of y'all have seen my videos on Facebook of me jerking these hooks out. We've got That's something else I started to talk about on the planer boards. With today's technology of the hooks, how sharp they are, you don't have to really set the hook that hard that, you know, pull on it or lean on it or just start reeling in some scenarios. With today's technology of hooks, I mean, they're very sharp, and I've jerked them out of people's head and hands and feet and back, and it's crazy. But these treble hooks are pretty dangerous. Even my wife, I'll tell on her since she's not here. When we first got married, we didn't have her arsenal of rods. I've got a rod for anything I want to do on the deck of my boat. So we were just working on her arsenal, getting it built up, and we'd go into springtime and we'd throw the whopper plopper during the day, and when it would get out at dark, we'd switch over to like an F-18 or a hit stick, and she cuts this whopper plopper off. I said, let's cut it off. It's time to go to an F-18. So she cuts this off, lays it in her seat. And so we got done fishing the F-18, and she goes to set down we're going to make our next move. So I've even took hooks out of buttocks. I'd have to know you pretty good to perform that one. I'm not going to do that on everybody, but I had to get one out of her that night. And in the dark of the night, just be careful of these treble hooks. Your fingers, I mean, they're dangerous. But use a fluke anytime. It's a lot safer. That's a 5-inch. They make a junior. This is the medium. This is the 5-inch fluke, and then they make a magnum fluke, which is 7 inches. Some people come in and buy just the magnum flukes because, as you know, as you see that bait out there flipping, and what they're chasing tends to be a little bit smaller. So even a junior is not out of the question. I just hate to give up that. When you go too small, you can't get that distance. And you know, as you've been out there chasing fish, distance a lot of times casting is very important, because you get too close to them, they'll go down. You spook them, and they're not staying up very long anyway. But I have a lot of people coming in and talking about that, and the reason why, here's my theory on why they're not coming up breaking very long. Have you been seeing these pods of bait fish on your fish finder? You notice how small they are. They're not, normally we talk about pods of bait fish that black out your fish finder, or big clouds. I've noticed smaller pods of bait fish, but they're everywhere. They're just everywhere I turn my live scope, there's a pod of bait fish. If those pods of bait fish will come together, make a bigger school of bait fish, then your fish will stay up longer. I know boat traffic and running in on them spooks them, but they are so consistent now. If you pay attention, by the time you get your boat there, they're going down. That school of bait fish, in my opinion, is so small, it don't take long for 20 or 30 fish to bust up that little small school of bait fish. So start paying attention when you see them on your live scope or on your fish finder in general. When you start seeing these bigger balls of bait, guess what? They're probably going to stay up a little bit longer, because that ball of bait will last 30 or 40 fish for perhaps 2 or 3, 4, 5 minutes, because it's a bigger school of fish. Once they disperse this little small ball of bait, then they're going to go down. They have no reason to still be up there. They're not jumping up for air. They're jumping up for bait. So once they disperse this school of bait fish, then they will go down. And that's the reason why they're not staying up very long. You start seeing these bigger pods, and it'll happen as this water temperature cools down. The bait fish will come together and make bigger pods, and you'll see a longer break. So just be patient. These cool nights is going to help a lot. They're going to start running up that river. Right now we've had these warm spells. I think it's kept the water temperature up. We stayed 73, 74, 76, 77 for a long time. That's kept the fish downstream, in my opinion, a little longer this year. I'm not saying you won't catch them if you go up the river, but there's bigger schools, more concentrations of them downstream right now, say below Becky's and Betty's, even below Walton's, a lot of activity around Strawberry Banks. So it's still downstream, but this kind of weather out here is going to make they're going to make a move north very quick.
I just want everybody to understand, when he says the river, it's the Blackwater River only. Okay? None of these fish are going up the Roanoke side. Okay? They're all going up the Blackwater side.
Must be going out the dam.
Well, I fish both sides. I do like the Blackwater River a little bit more. I know it a little bit more, but I was sort of born and raised on the Blackwater side, so I fish it more, and I like the Blackwater River. I think you have more current, more flow on the Roanoke side, and they can get up farther on the Roanoke side. You can get your boat up there a little bit farther is what I'm saying. Once they get up around the Ponderosa, man, it is very skinny water up there. So they still go, but we can't go as much. So that's the reason why in my opinion, I like the Blackwater side. It's a little bit narrow. It's not as much, I don't think it's as highly pressured. Don't have as many guides over on that side. Don't have as many striper, a lot of bass fishermen, but I sort of like the Blackwater side, but they'll go up both sides. Don't let Chad fool you. He's just trying to protect his holes over here. But and then talking about live bait and talking about flukes, jigging, you got monoline, you got fluorocarbon line. Again, these will be door prizes. So if you want to try fluorocarbon, very expensive, I know it is, but fluorocarbon is no stretch, not much give there, but it's less visible in the water. Anything subsurface, such as the fluke, even in my bass fishing world, Texas rig, Carolina rig, crankbait, anything that's going to go down, I'm going to use this fluorocarbon on because it sinks, it helps keep your bait down to the desired depth better. Monoline, because it's less expensive, a lot of people put on their bait rod because some of your bait rods are very large. So they're going to hold a big, this particular reel here holds 220 yards, a 20-pound test. And so it would be very expensive to do the whole thing fluorocarbon. And so I do monoline on my striper reels to my leader, to my swivel. And from here down to my hook is fluorocarbon. So I'm just using a fluorocarbon leader. But in the bass world, my bass reels will hold about 115 to 130 yards of line, and I go ahead and put that whole spool of a line there on my bass reels because it don't cost as much. But monoline floats, anytime you do the buzz baits, you do whopper ploppers, you do spooks, anything that floats, you do monoline. So keep that, there's going to be a need for both. I have a lot of rods and reels, probably 40 of them just for bass fishing, and I may have 2 mono. I have 2 rods that I throw my top water on, my spooks, my buzz bait, something like that. Everything else that I do is fluorocarbon. 95% of the time I'm big on fluorocarbon. I think it really does get you more bites. In a deep, clear body of water like we have here at Smith Mountain, a very highly pressured fishery here, the fluorocarbon is a little more stealthy. It's not as visible to the fish, and I think that will get you more bites if you do the fluorocarbon. I know it's expensive, go ahead and bite the bullet, but you'll find yourself catch more fish.
You don't use braid on it?
Braid, I don't like braid in clear water. I don't tie directly. Now I do have a rod or two. My wife loves to drop shot in the bass world. I don't like the drop shot. You tend to catch smaller fish, in my opinion. But anyhow, I do have one rod, a spinning rod, that I have braid on, and I do hers that way so that it don't tangle. On spinning reels, especially the 20 and 30 class reels, they're not real big in diameter. So the smaller diameter, the tighter the line goes on the reel. A spinning reel is not as forgiving because when you reel that line in, it's an automatic twist. So 2 things about spinning reels. Yes, do braid. You can fill the reel all the way up and then do a fluorocarbon leader. I do about a 15-foot fluorocarbon leader for her to get away from that braid. I think fish will see braid in clear water if you tie directly to it. I know people's caught fish on braid. I'm not saying it's 0 chance because I'm sure you've done it. But again, in clear water and high pressure, to be as stealthy as you can, do fluorocarbon, tip that. Take about a 15-foot section and do the blood knot, or there's a lot of different knots. I've even got a knot for that I can show you. I won't take the time. I didn't bring anything, but I can show you a good knot for going braid to fluorocarbon if you want to take and have that security of braid and then have the stealthiness of the fluorocarbon. Do that knot and tie directly to your bait with fluorocarbon, not braid.
One of the casting rods, you have a,
Yeah, we're going to get to that. That's
you ever put braid on those?
I don't.
Because they rat nest too much?
Well, again, I think fish see it.
Okay.
And if I'm going to have to tie that knot to everything, I'm bait caster 90% of the time, so I would have to tie that knot a lot to go to fluorocarbon. And I think fish are going to see that, so the reason I don't tie, the only time I have one spinning reel that I have braid on, but I tip it with fluorocarbon, and then I'm going to get to that next. I do have a rod and reel here that I pull my umbrella rigs with that has braid, and I'll go over that just here in a second. But I'm not a big fan of braid at all.
On the cigar, I've used the beige you just had, the red label, and the yellow. What's the difference? Because I tell you, if I'm fishing for bass or striper, I might use 15 to 20 pounds, even the yellow. It seems like it still has, I run into a lot of the memory.
There is a lot of memory in fluorocarbon. It's not as flexible. It's not as forgiving as mono. That's the reason why a lot of people will go mono is to have that flexibility, especially if you're fishing on a spinning reel. A spinning reel will handle mono better than fluorocarbon. I don't recommend fluorocarbon putting it on the whole reel of a spinning reel at all.
How about casting? On your casting?
If on my casting reel, I do fluorocarbon, and you'll have, depending on how often you fish, if it's a week or two before you go fishing, you cast that for the first time, it's going to have a little bit of coil to it. But Real Magic, you familiar with it?
Yeah.
Take and spray that on there. That keeps your line softer. Or you can take and if you're doing it on a spinning reel, take the spool off the reel. Once you put your line on there, turn your spigot on in your sink or your bathtub, and all hot water. Hold that spool under that hot water for a minute, and that softens up the line too. So Real Magic or hot water, if you're going to take, and if you're going to put it on a spinning reel and you don't want to put braid on there, no more than 2/3 full when you're putting line on a spinning reel. 2/3 full, because if you go any more than that, when you open it up, you know what happens. That line wants to jump off that spool. Next thing, and you ain't got but 2 or 3 casts, and then you're going to have just a big bird's nest like you threw it from a bait caster. So no more than 2/3 full, whether you're doing mono or fluorocarbon on there, if that's what you're used to. Now braid is a little more forgiving. You can fill a spinning reel up with braid. That's the reason why a lot of the pros do that. Still have your line capacity and to put braid on there, and then tip it with your fluorocarbon or tip it with mono, whatever you want to tip it with. And that's another thing when you're talking about reels. I'm real big. I have 5-gear ratio, 6-gear ratio, 7-gear ratio reels. If you don't take and keep that spool up there with line, you lose some of that ratio. If you think about it, the smaller that spool gets, you're not, if you know, a 5-gear ratio brings in about 21 inches per turn of the handle. A 6-gear ratio brings in about 26 inches per turn of the handle. A 7-gear ratio brings in about 31 inches per turn of the handle. But if you don't have a full spool of line, you're not getting that gear ratio. So you know, if it's important when you're doing crankbaits or when you're fighting a fish, you want to get it in fat. A fatter spool will get your fish in faster than a spool that's very low on line. So if gear ratio is important to you, keep your reel full with line. But that's some of the difference between braid, fluorocarbon, and mono. We all grew up doing mono. You know, we didn't have the money for fluorocarbon, all this expensive stuff. I don't even know if fluorocarbon was even around when I was growing up, but it is a necessity here, in my opinion, on Smith Mountain Lake and any clear body. Or if you go to a pond where they have tannic water, off-colored water, then you could probably tie straight on to braid and probably catch fish. They're not going to take and see it as good as they do in Smith Mountain Lake. So that's another if you're pond fishing.
Is there a line that floats better with the surface when you're throwing out the surface type bait? And second question is, what's the best line for getting the furthest out on the cast?
The smaller line, I always tell you go smaller because that gives you further casting distance. Big line is a drag through your eyelets and everything, so go as small as you can go to get that distance. And two, it's stealthy. It goes smaller. If I could get by with 10 or 12 pound test, I know the stripers will hit it better. The bass will hit it better if you go smaller. Your mono and braid will float a lot better than everything else. If you're looking for a floating line, braid is it. It floats. Yeah, it's thinner, and when you make that cast, and you can see that line lay on top of that water for a long ways, all the way to where that you can see it getting closer to you as your line starts to sink, your lure starts to sink. But braid, if you're looking for floating line, braid's probably the best.
Hey, Dwayne, back to the stripers busting. So, good to see you 2 nights ago with Jessica fishing the Blackwater. I'm not going to tell everybody where. Stripers have been busting big time. That was me out in the kayak. I tried to wave hello to you. So, when they bust, and then they go down, and then you wait around 15, 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden they're busting, is that the same group of fish busting, or
That's,
because I've watched them move and think, all right, I'm gonna get to the end of the cove because they're going that direction, but somebody said, no way, man, it's all different schools.
I think but majority of the time, I think it's different schools. It really depending on how far off you're really talking and thinking. You know, if you're on one side of the lake and in a minute they're over there, that's probably not. But what makes you think that it could be the same school of fish to me is how fast these things are moving in general. I mean, you could go there when they go down, and you could sit and watch them on your live scope. Now I've got my trolling motor on like 8 or 9 trying to keep up with these things, and they're going off the screen. Yeah. And me on 8 or 9 on my, so I know they're going really fast. Right. And so they can very well be just you take 60 seconds as fast as, I don't know what a striper can swim, but they run 100 mile an hour to their next school. That's what they're doing. They're feeding up for this winter and this fall, and they bust this school of bait up. Well, guess what? They're wide open till they run into their next school of bait fish.
Yeah, well, you know that section. There's a bunch of boats out there.
Can you give us some coordinates?
So I'm trying to, you know, I'm in a kayak. I'm just hoping they bust close enough to me before the bass boats get there. So. Go ahead.
I think he's talking about the Camp Kilowatt area. I think, is that the area?
Past that.
Oh, way past that.
R30, I think he meant.
We sprayed there this week. There was some grass in there. We sprayed. There ain't nothing in there now.
Yes, sir.
Dwayne, it says, now, can we trust AI? I don't know, but it does say striped bass can swim at speeds up to 12 miles per hour in bursts. So 12 miles an hour, that's pretty fast for short bursts, but their average speed, you know, for cruising around 3.5 to 4 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So even at 8 or 9, your boat's not going 3.5 to 4 miles
Right.
per hour.
On wide open, you're only getting what, 3.5 out of your speed. So that's just their cruising, and their burst is 3-4 times faster than what I'm going with my trolling motor. So that's the reason why I think it can be the same school of fish, because of how fast they can move. But sometimes you get 2 or 3 schools going at the same time. Of course, that's separate schools. Yeah, that's I don't know how to answer that one. Sometimes it can be, and sometimes it can't be, just because of the distance. We'll move on to this is my jigging rod too. This is the reason I brought this is when I jig, I put a little inline swivel, barrel swivel here, because as you know, when you jig a fluke, it has the down spiral. When you drop your rod tip, it goes in a spiral. You've got about 10 minutes worth of jigging, and your line's going to wrap around the rod. You're going to have to cast. You're going to have to troll that to get that twist out of your line. So a little gadget, a little trick that I do is just an inline barrel swivel, and this could be, I don't like it much farther than this, because what happens when you get in a hurry, now I can cast this reel too, but this is mainly for my jigging. This is the Kuma Convector 354. It's a little bit bigger, so I can put a little bit bigger line on it if I want to, but I still do 15-pound fluorocarbon right now. And the reason I don't like that swivel up, you know, most people in that distance is where they cast with from their rod tip down to their bait. If you do that swivel any farther up, you're going to take and hit your insert, and you can't hit that. As you know, I've done a lot of rod tips in 27 years at the shop, and I tell people, do not, I know you're in a hurry, do not reel that swivel up and keep banging against it. This ceramic insert in your eyelet will either pop out or it's going to chip, as most of you know. And then when it chips, it makes a sharp edge and it frays your line. So bass fishermen are the world's worst for it. When they get done with a Texas rig, a bullet weight here, they just reel it up to their rod tip, and next thing you know, they're jamming that so many times that it's going to knock your insert out. So the reason I do a short leader with my swivel is, number one, to keep the twist from happening. And if I go to cast this, if they was to come up breaking while I'm sitting there jigging, I don't have to leave such a long leader. You know, you're going to have to leave this leader. Don't make a leader where your fluke's down here. You're not going to be very accurate with your cast. So if you jig, put you an inline swivel in there, your line will thank you. After about, I'm serious, 10 to 15 minutes, when you jig, when you pull up, that jig pops up. When you let it go down, it falls in a spiral, in a twist, and it always falls the same direction. So how many times can you sit there and let that thing fall without getting twist in your line? So the inline swivel will keep the twist down. And that's the reason I brought this, is just for the, I have a jigging rod and I have a casting rod, and that's mainly the difference. Jigging, I like the line counter. Now I'm on the front of the boat, so I have live scope, so I know how deep my bait's going for the most part. But I really like when Riley or my wife, Jessica, uses this out of the back of the boat. They don't have the technology that I have up on the front of my boat, so I have this in their hands most of the time. So when I tell them 24 feet, the line counter tells them 24 feet, and they're not down there in the trees. You know, if I see trees down there at 50 feet and they're hung up, I don't say, well, I told you 24 feet. This right here tells on them. I mean, this really helps them to be more precise in their depth. And that's another thing that I missed on the live bait. You say you don't need a line counter when you do your planer boards. That diagram, the paper that you just had to go around, I use a line counter when I put out my planer boards, so that I know that I've got that distance on that piece of paper there. I want my front planer board at 90 feet. Well, when you're looking at your planer boards, you don't know how much distance you've got in between the planer boards sometimes. What the line counter does is know that I've got one out at 90, I've got my next one out at 120, I've got my next one out at 150, so that when you get a bite on that board, you don't want two boards so close together. You know how those boards take off when you get a bite. You don't want your front board running into your middle board. So I know I've got 30 foot of clearance separation in my planer board. So that's another ideal. I used to run two sets of rods. I had a planer board, the 6500 Abu Garcia 6500. That's what I planer board fished with, because they didn't have line counters. Well, this is very helpful, even running planer board. It's not just a trick or a technique just for down rodding or whatever. And same thing goes about bottom fishing. When I take and put a 1 ounce sinker on here and bottom fish, when I cast out, I may want some of them out 50 feet, but there may be a ledge out there. So I'm trying to get close to that ledge, but I don't want to go beyond that ledge. I know how far that ledge is out. Well, guess what? When I cast, this tells me how far out I am, my bait's going to be, so I know I'm not at that ledge that's out there at 60 foot. So I don't want to go off the ledge, so I want to bottom fish, and I want my bait to be out there 50 feet. That's another little handy tool when you're bottom fishing, to know how far out you are before you get into deeper water. So that's another little deal, is the reason I like to have one rod to do it all, in a sense.
Hey, Dewayne, will you circle back to the busting fish real quick? One thing that I've seen out just being able to outcrank a feeding striper. Because I've seen some folks that whatever they're throwing, they'll throw it out, they'll let it sink, and while the fish are busting, they're retrieving.
Too slow.
So they're probably 15, 20 feet down, going slow. Those fish are being chased. You can't outcrank a striper.
You can't. You know, when you're pulling an umbrella rig, I pull it, and I'm going to get into that next. You know, I pull an umbrella rig at almost 3 miles an hour, and they catch that with ease. So I don't know how fast you can reel. Maybe AI tell you that too, but you can't outcrank. But there's two things to that. Sometimes reeling that slower, you tend to, when you get into these breaking fish, sometimes you may have 22 or 24-inch fish up on the surface, but if you reel that thing slower, like for example with that bucktail or with a fluke, if you get down underneath that, those big fish are lazy. They'll come in and just take the scraps that the little fish is busting up or injured or cut in half or whatever the case may be. So I've seen a time when that's very handy, that you'll catch bigger fish if you reel it slow, because you're getting down underneath the schoolie fish to the big boys. So, but I want to cover as much water and get as many casts as I can. So I'm tend to go a little bit faster with it as opposed to slow. If I make a bad cast, reel that thing in, and you reeling it in, and I'll actually get a fish trying to reel it in to make my next cast. That's how fast these things are. And so, but when they're breaking, they'll hit about anything. I mean, flukes and bucktails, and it don't matter if you're reeling at 2 mile an hour or 4 mile an hour. These things are just on a feeding frenzy, and they're there to feed.
Have the swivel on the leader with your flute. Is that just for jigging or for casting as well?
I can do both, but that's mainly for jigging. That's the take and cut down on the twist that I was talking about. I have the casting rod, which is the same scenario without the inline swivel. So if I'm doing more casting, there's no need for a swivel. And I was going to talk about this with I have so many things going through my brain, but when you do that knot, the braid to fluorocarbon, we was talking about on the reels, when you do this, I know in the back of my mind this is weak points. So if I can cut down on this, or if I can take and use a bait caster with all fluorocarbon and not have to put that blood knot braid to fluorocarbon, again, that's a weak point. That's where something could go wrong. I'm not a big fan of snaps or swivels. They say, well, you get more action out of your bait. I don't know. If you do that loop knot, there's a new loop knot that you can do when you want the flexibility of your action of your bait. A lot of these bass guys are doing it when they talk about throwing the minnow, shaking a minnow at the bass, and this is the new phenomenon with the live scope. They're shaking a minnow at them. They'll you add that knot, and that's something that could go wrong. So I don't like to add no more knots than I have to. But here, it's very worth it, but just simply because of the twist that I'm trying to take out of my line. So you could do the same thing, but what this does is keep me from having to stop in the middle of my fishing and put this inline swivel in. This is my casting model. This is my jigging model. So I have one of each just to cut down on twist.
On the jigging rod, is that all fluorocarbon?
Yes. Again, it's not I think that holds 155. The smaller one, I forgot the model. I carry two different models. They have one that's smaller than this that holds 135 yards of 15 fluorocarbon. And I think this is a little bit bigger model, holds 155 yards of fluorocarbon. Again, 15-pound test. I like fluorocarbon, and I like that 15-pound. You go above that, I really think, even at fluorocarbon, I take the chance of fish seeing it because it's a bigger diameter. So I'm real big on 15-pound, whether I'm bass fishing, my Texas rig, Carolina rig, worm rod, all that's got 15 pounds. All of my casting rods, if I'm casting Berkeley hit sticks at night, if I'm casting Rapala F-18s at night, it's 15-pound fluorocarbon, real big on fluorocarbon.
You always jig with flutes, or do you use spoons?
No, you could do it with spoons. This is just a little cheaper way of doing it. You know, these spoons that they're doing now are $22, big magnums, but it works. Don't get me wrong, it works. But I don't know, it's just so big and bulky, and I prefer to do it with lightweight flukes. It's so versatile. You could do it with now a butt tail or a paddle tail. I don't jig anything like that. The fork tail of a fluke, most of your bites when you're jigging, they hit it on the fall. The paddle tail or the hair of a bucktail slows the fall down. So your fall rate is what you're looking for when you're jigging. A spoon falls fast. Now it may fall over here or fall over here. This is more stream inline. I can pretty much keep it at my feet. But I just don't like the weight of those spoons. They're 3.5 ounces, and then they beat your rod up when you go up and down the lake. And I sell a bunch of them. I mean, I'm not knocking them. I know they work.
Dwayne, when you're jigging those flukes, are you watching it on your screen as you're jigging it, or do you not need that?
I do. I can see how the fish, what's important to me when I'm jigging, when I'm anything, that live scope, what that does, it tells you so much. If those fish are, if you're, so right there, I'm around one, and that fish don't even give you the time of the day and starts swimming away, I'm watching that because is my action, does it need to be different? Does my head need to be different? Does my color need to be different? So watch that anytime you can on live scope. It will tell you a story. If that fish runs up there to it and it stays a second, then you're probably not too far off. You got his interest and you got him to come to you, but what does it take to get the fish to actually bite? If you watch how they react to it. If you drop that jig down there and he turns and actually swims the other way, then you're way off. You probably don't have the right color, you don't have the right size, something's wrong, or he's just not hungry. I mean, it could be a lot of variables there, but always watch it on your live scope or your fish finder when possible. It'll tell you what you need to do. Of course, if you get bit, you know you're doing it right, but watch his reaction when he comes up to that bait. Umbrella rigs, very expensive way of fishing, but I love it. You cover a lot of water, and I brought this rod and reel just to show you. This is one that I do braid with, and I just think, if they're not going to pay attention to that big metal frame of a umbrella rig, then why is braid going at 3 miles an hour going to hurt you? So I do 50-pound braid. Again, I brought very, very important here. This is I have a lot of people come in when they want to troll. I've taken sort of made a little cheat sheet, if you will. Now you can do it your way. You can do it different size weights. You can do it with different size line, different speed of your boat. But when I pull an umbrella rig, I don't change the heads. I do all 3/4. I have probably 50 umbrella rigs, just different sizes, different colors. But I promise you, every one of my heads is 3/4 of an ounce. All of my rigs has 9 baits on it. Because of this equation that I have here, the line size is 50-pound braid. My boat speed is 2.8 miles an hour at idle, just putting your boat, big engine, in idle at 2.8 miles an hour. My rig weight is 9 baits. That's what I was referring to. I have 9 3/4 ounce heads on my umbrella rig. And if you do this equation, for every 10 feet of line you put out, your rig goes down 2.5 feet. So I can do the math in my head. When I see the fish, I don't change different size heads. If I need deeper, I just put out more line. I don't go to 1 ounce heads, because if you do 1 ounce heads, it messes up this equation. So I can put out 100 feet of line and the fish are at 25 feet. Then I know I've got to put out 100 feet of line to get that 25 foot. If I keep everything the same, my boat speed, my head size, all that needs to stay the same, and I do my adjustment with the amount of line that I'm putting out. So again, I'm going to pass these around, take one or take a picture of your phone, but this is very handy. Now, if you want to take and have your own cheat sheet, you can start from here. If you just want 1/2 ounce heads, you'll have to do your own. You may have to put out a little more line. 80 feet puts me 20 feet down. That's the magic number that everybody tries to get to. Bait fishing, umbrella rigging, everybody tries to get in that magic 20-foot range. I know based on this equation, I have to put out 80 feet on my line counter reel with 50-pound braid to get the 20-foot magic number. So again, I'll pass these around, just pass it. If you want one, take it. If not, just take a picture of it with your phone or whatever you need to do. And I use the Sea Striker. Again, I always do this because this is a 3-ounce frame, a 3-ounce lead sinker here. I don't play with my weight. When I rig this all the way up with 3/4 ounce heads and 9 baits, I know this thing weighs approximately 11 ounces. So I don't play with that. I just do it with the line out, the distance. And then this retriever, I'd never pull an umbrella rig, because you can have some of mine, I've got up to $60 on. You can pull these stump jumpers and these hammer baits and very expensive stuff on umbrella rigs, so I don't want to lose them. This retriever is a must. If you're going to do, really for any lake that has standing timber, go to some place like Claytor where they don't have much, then it's not as important. But if you pull it here, if you pull it into Tennessee rivers where they got left standing timber, you're going to eventually find a tree. Now, the reason why I brought all this, there's a little trick to the pulling the umbrella rigs. When you're pulling a rig and you get hung up in this tree, here comes the rig. Now, I will always watch my fish finder. I can avoid a lot of trouble by you need extra set of hands when you're pulling rigs. Somebody needs to stay on the wheel and the throttle at all times, because you can avoid some of that by speeding up and let your rig come up and get over top of this tall tree. And then when you get past it, pull back down to 2.8 miles an hour, let your rig come back down to the desired depth. But occasionally some things are going to catch you off guard and you're going to get in this tree. The way you get these things back, you pull into this tree and it stops. Well, I pull 2 or 3 umbrella rigs. That umbrella rig, the damage is already done. Don't go after that rod. Get the rod that's not hung up before you get them both in it. So everybody gets excited. At first they think it's a fish. And everybody jumps after that rod. I said, the damage is done there. Don't go after that one. Get my other ones in. Now, it's important when you go back to use this retriever, this thing is hung in this tree like this. Here's your limbs. Here's your tree limbs. Very important for me to go to neutral, let my party get the other lines in. I want to back straight up. Some people say, well, I don't want to back up. I want to turn around. When you turn around, and you go back to this umbrella rig, you're wrapping your line around these limbs. So it's very important to stop, get your lines in, back up, and you have this retriever on a 3/16 rope is what I pull it on, and you want this rig to go straight down. Did I lose my microphone? You want this rig to go straight down. You don't want it to go off onto an angle going to this grappling hook has got to get to this frame of this umbrella rig. And if you circle around and go get your umbrella rig, when you wrap that braid, guess what? This grappling hook won't stand a chance of getting to this frame. This grappling hook grabs that frame and you rip it up out of there. You may lose a bait or two, but you'll get I've pulled rigs since, I think, 2002, and I've lost one umbrella rig. It's unbelievable how accurate this thing is. You get them back if you don't wrap your line. Now, I know there's situations when the wind's blowing and you got to turn around and go forward. I know that, but luckily we haven't run into too many lost rigs. But anytime you can, back straight up to that rig and let this thing go straight down to where the grappling hook will grab one of the arms of the umbrella rig. And you got 50-pound braid on there. That's enough security. Now, after I get hung up a time or two, I'm going to cut about 6 or 7 inches of that braid off, because when you get in those trees, you may nick, put little nicks. That's the reason why I don't pull umbrella rigs on mono or fluorocarbon, because this is a lot tougher, a lot more durable than your mono. Or if you get a little nick or a spot in fluorocarbon or mono, as soon as you go to pull on it, it's going to break. This braid's a whole lot tougher, and there's a whole lot better chance that you'll get your rig back if you do the braid, so your line don't break. If your line breaks before you get back there, then it's gone.
What
So,
size braid?
50 pound. It's on that paper if you took one. And you could do it with 80 pound. You could do it with 30 pound. But the diameter of the line makes a difference. When you cut through the water, you're not going to get that equation on that piece of paper if you change any aspect of it. I'm not saying 50 pounds the best. I just have that equation worked out with my boat speed, the line that I like, and the heads that I like. I have that equation. So again, I've done the work for you. If you'll just come and ask me, that's one of the things that I can help you with when you get ready to start pulling umbrella rigs.
When are the better times to pull umbrella rigs?
I like it. Now's a great time because of how fast those things are moving. I like to catch them breaking. But if you want to take and cover a lot of water, you're going at almost 3 miles an hour, you can cover a lot of water. So I like it in the springtime, I like planer boards, March, April, May. That's when they're up shallow. After the spawn, they tend to get out into a little bit deeper water in May, June, July. Anytime those fish are in deeper water and you treat January, February, March sort of the same way because it's cold, they go deeper, then you can pull umbrella rigs. You can pull umbrella rigs 12 months out of the year, but I think the most favorable times, anytime when they go deep, like they're 20, 25, 30 foot deep, then you can pull umbrella rigs and cover a lot more water as opposed to going 0.6 miles an hour pulling planer boards. You cover a lot more water. So that's the reason why a lot of people will find a need to pull umbrella rigs. And another, you don't have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and throw a cast net. You can just get up at daylight and go fishing. Your bait's already in your box. And which leads me to the next door prize that we're going to do. The way we store these things, the people comes in the marina all the time and they'll say, well, I'm going to buy an arsenal of umbrella rigs. And they get them up on the counter and pay for them. And they say, now what am I going to do? Well, the best way that I do, I have a compartment that's just for all my accessories here in my center console boat. And this is a tote that I get at the dollar store, and I lay an umbrella rig, a hand towel, umbrella rig, hand towel. You can put a lot of umbrella rigs in this thing because they're not that thick when they lay flat. So umbrella rig, hand towel, or a piece of this stuff they put on the shelving to take. My hooks do dig into the towel a little bit, but it's not that big of a deal. So if you don't want something that'll hook onto the hooks, you can use that shelving material that they put on shelves so things don't fall in the cracks. But the very handy way of storing your, this is only like $10 or something at the dollar store, and easy on, easy off. Now I have 3 or 4 of these because I have so many rigs. The only drawback to it is if I want the rig on the bottom. So that's the reason why I've got 3 or 4 of these totes. I don't put a big bunch of them in there. I may not have 4 or 5 in there in case I want the one on the bottom. So that's the reason to have maybe multiples of these, depending on how heavy you're going to get into umbrella rig fishing. But this will be again another door prize that will be given away at the end. So if you want an umbrella rig fish, this is a great way to store it. And when you go to stack them, the towel or the green and white that really works here. I sell a lot of white and green sassy shad for umbrella rigs. The green will bleed over on the white. So I try to keep the white and the green. I may put the white on the bottom and then have 2 or 3 other colors and then put my green on top so that my green don't touch the white, because over time it will bleed over. So that's another purpose of putting something in between your umbrella rigs, is so that the baits don't interchange.
Do you ever troll those smaller Alabama rigs?
I don't, again, because of that equation. They do 5 baits. It works, don't get me wrong, but because I'm so big on wanting to know my depth and my range, I stick with the 9 bait. But the Alabama rigs do work. But my problem is, what if you see the fish down 30 or 40 feet? There's not a snowball's chance that you're going to get that 5 bait rig down as deep as you would a 9 bait rig. So that's the reason why and if I see fish up shallow, then I just reel in some of my line and don't put out as much line. So the 9 bait rig to me, because I've got that equation down, is so versatile. So that's what I stick with.
If you were going to recommend one color over the other, green or white, what would be your recommendation?
Green, hands down. And that's everywhere I go. I have green. I have so many different colors of green. I have bright green. I have dull green. I have the Invader probably the Invader, Big Hammer Invader is probably my favorite green. It has a little bit of sparkle to it, 2-tone green, that's probably, probably caught more fish on that, but the lime green sassy shad, 5-inch sassy shad that I have at Indian Point, is probably day in and day out over the years. When I first started trolling lead core line back in the 80s, that was everybody's go-to, was the bright green 5-inch sassy shad. Now there's a day, I don't know if it's light variable, but that's the reason why I have so many different umbrella rigs. I'm going to pull one for about 20 minutes, and if I don't get bit, I'm going to switch out. I've got all these different colors. I don't mix and match on my umbrella rigs. I have 9 baits. I don't put green, blue, white. I can't figure nothing out if I do that. But if I pull a green one for 20 minutes and I don't get bit, I pull a white one and I get bit within 2 or 3 minutes, guess what? All white's going on. So that's the reason why I do what I do on the umbrella rigs. All of my rigs, when I pull out a rig, it's all the same size and all the same color. Here's a little, with your live bait fish, this salt bag up here is 40 pounds. I take and have my water, when I get ready to catch my bait, I want my water, there's 2 or 3 things that I put in my water. Salt is first and foremost. That's your most important. People come in, I caught bait today, and in 20 minutes it's dead. Did you use salt? No. That's your first ingredient is the salt. In the summertime, I'll use some ice to cool the water temperature down. You want your water temperature 7 to 10 degrees cooler than your surface temperature, because if you pay attention to that SML Plus app, how often is that 20 foot in the summertime? It's a big gap between them. If you take and pay attention to that, that's a very handy tool. Get that SML Plus app. That chart that they do on the water temperature is a very handy tool on where you need. If your bait is coming from 18 feet of water, well, you look at the water temperature that's down there at 20 foot. That's what you need to make your bait temperature in your bait tank water, your temperature in your bait tank. So at least 7 or 8 degrees difference on your water temperature, and you do that with ice. And then I'll use better bait. That condition, that puts a slime on them, hardens their scales, keeps them from, because when you take and net them, you take off that first layer of defense, which is the slime. When they lose that slime, then they start losing scales. So you want to put that slime back on them as fast as possible. That's their first layer of defense. And then they'll get black back, they get red nosed, and then next thing you know, they're dead. But keep extra salt on your boat. If you get out there and you run out of bait and you have to go catch bait, and they say, well, I left my salt back at my dock or back in my truck, I keep this little tote and I fill it up. This gives me 2 or 3 water changes, and I have access to it out there. But I want to get rid of all my water and I'm gonna go catch fresh bait. Well, I've got some salt in so I don't have to carry this big bag of salt around with me. This is just an easier way to do it. And again, that's going to be a door prize. I'm not carrying it back out, so I carried it in here. So somebody's going to win it as a door prize, and they can take it home with.
What's your salt ratio?
On my bait tank in my boat, it's a 40-gallon. I do 2 handfuls of this. I don't think you can overdose them with salt. So always yield on the more salt. It is not very expensive. That bag of salt's like $12, and it'll last you a long time because you're using a double handful. Now in the 50s, I carry 2 50s in the back of my truck for when I want to transport bait. I'll do 2 of these double handfuls. So it's really dependent on the volume of water. And if you don't think it's enough, put another handful, because like I say, you can't, and minnows, the minnows that I sell at the shiners, you can mix and salt won't hurt them. So if you want some minnows and bait, some people say, well, I'm going to buy some minnows off of you just in case I can't catch no bait. You can put them in the same bait tank, and the salt won't hurt the minnows either. So make sure you use salt.
That's plain salt too, it's not iodized, correct?
Correct. Water conditioner salt. I have a water softener system at my house. It's the same stuff that I put in my water softener at home. It's you get it at Caps is where I got mine. It's I usually go in there and tell them. Now they make the pellets and they make the small crystals. The small crystals is what I want when I'm putting it, when I need it now. When I'm catching bait fresh, I need it now. In my home tank, I have a 400-gallon tank that I keep extra bait in. I use the big pellets because it can dissolve slowly. I don't need it now. But when I'm out there on my boat and I'm catching bait and I want that slime coat on them now, the crystals dissolve faster than the pellets. So go to Caps, ask, or wherever, and tell them you want the blue bag of salt, which is the fine crystals. I guess that's it. That's all my props that I've got here, and I think I've hit all my bases that I wanted to cover. But just know that I'm at Indian Point, and I'm there for you. I appreciate everybody that has done business with us for the 27 years. And come talk to me if you're getting ready to buy rods and reels. It's not just a sales pitch. I mean, I carry a lot of the stuff that you're probably going to buy, but you can buy it wherever. But to come and talk to me, hopefully I can save you some money, give you a little bit of knowledge, help your experience. I want everybody, I want everybody to catch fish. That's what keeps you going back. So I try to be honest up front with everybody at the shop because I want you to come back. I don't want it to be just a one-time $300 or $400 deal and I don't see you again. So any questions? Yes.
How do you feel about taking all the treble hooks off the lures and putting single hooks on there?
I'm all for it. As long as it don't affect the action of your bait, it saves your fingers, it gets your fish off, especially in my situation. That's the reason I like the fluke that I throw, the one hook I got to deal with. It gets the fish back in the water. I don't keep a whole lot of fish. I may keep 4 or 5 fish a year, but it gets the fish back in the water faster. It's safer on your hands. So if you can take and switch that treble off to I've done it on my thunder sticks before. Now if I'm in a tournament situation, I want the comfort of that treble hook so I don't lose the fish. But if I'm just out there fun fishing, I've been known to put single hooks on my thunder stick just so I don't hurt the fish. But if you switching it out, yeah. Now some split rings are a little stiffer and stouter and a little harder. A lot of times I can do it. I've got fingernails. I can do it with my fingernails on some of them. But yeah, a pair of split ring pliers on your boat, and you can do that just in a jiffy. Yep. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
What's everybody looking at me for? Hey, real quick, guys.